stand right here. And you look right up there. You do your eyes hand like this. You see the forehead, the nose, and those bushes up there is growing out on the end of the nose.
You can see it, but it's not.
See the forehead comes off there, and when you take it, it looks like the
chin.
chest. If you close your eyes out like this, like it's right there. No, darn, you're looking in the wrong place. Right here. You see those cactus up right there on the top?
Yeah.
Okay, you see that first thing? It looks like the top of a man's head, and then there's his nose going down there, and then his lips right underneath it, and that other piece is his chin. That's that. And I tell you, look at me. If you do your hands like this and look through your hands, so you don't see everything else around, then you see more of it.
Oh yeah.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
You can take a picture of Brother Branham taken in Houston with a pillar of fire of his head, and that's what he looks like.
And down.
The biggest thing going out here and come back.
The clump of cactus would be at the very top of the head. And see where the little brown bush is sticking out? That's the nose. That's the bridge of the nose right here. And it goes down, and you can see the lips. And the chin sticking out right there.
Shut everything else out, see?
Okay, want me to take a picture?
Yes.
See what I'm talking about?
No, yes. How you make your hands?
So we can see.
Look out of one. See, just like that?
Yeah.
Look out of one eye.
Look out there.
You see the
Right
profile
above
of
that
the
brown
brown.
bushy there.
Right on top there.
Top there, huh?
Yeah. See the cactus right on top there?
Now, the thing that's interesting about that, see,
His face is
Follow it down.
there, where the 7
Thanks.
Now, this is where they camped right here.
It's in the rocks, that kind of rock
He
that
went
the
up
leaf
there
is.
hunting, and up there, where the 7 acres
See where that brown little bush is? Right at that point. That little brown.
How many
Just the bushy.
thousands of years did it take the wind, the rain, the weather, erosion to do that?
Well, it's the bush,
Of all
not
of
a
the
cactus,
places,
but
it
it's
looks
just
like
branches,
here at
brown
this place where all
branches
these
of
supernatural
bush. You
things
see it? On that side,
Yeah.
that's the top of the nose.
Come over and I'll tell you what
On the
happened.
other side of this bush.
You didn't see that? Show me.
Rattlesnake sticks.
That's cool.
If you'll come this way, you can hear what I have to say.
Hello, come here.
Give an explanation.
The state of Arizona has some famous characters in history that people know, like Geronimo, Cochise, 2 Indian chiefs here in Arizona. Then we have lawmen like Wyatt Earp from down at Tombstone. And we had another one called William Cody. His name was Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid was a young boy that lived in this area, and where we came in today from Wilcox and dead-ended there and made the sharp left-hand turn. Billy the Kid lived over on that side of the valley, and a cowboy raped his mother, and he took the family pistol and killed that man right in front of that little old store down there. That's where the reason I went that way and then come back. But that's where Billy the Kid got his reputation. He shot the man who raped his mother. And of course, during his lifetime, he supposedly killed 15 other men. The first time that we know that Brother Branham had anything to do with this area was he came over here with a prospector named McAnally that lived in Phoenix. Now, Brother McAnally was an Arizona highway patrolman, but at heart, he was a prospector. He loved to go hunting for gold and minerals and things like that. Well, if you go 2 miles further up this road, there's a store up there, and that's the little town of Klondyke. It's named after the Klondyke gold strike in Alaska, because they found a little gold strike in here somewhere, and he came in here, and he knew about this area, and Brother Branham had hunted with him since back in the 40s. Every time Brother Branham would come out here and it was hunting season and everything, well, he would go hunting with Brother McAnally. Well, in 1961, in January, Brother Branham was in Beaumont, Texas, and that's the first meeting that I ever was part of the sponsorship. My dad was the first one in 50, and I pastored the church in 61, and I was a businessman, and I was the member of a rifle range, and I offered to let Brother Branham go out and shoot his gun at the rifle range, which I was a member of. And he told me in January 61, he said, well, Brother Green, I only brought 3 shells. And he was coming to Arizona to go pig hunting with this prospector, which was McAnally. And this is where they eventually came. Well, I thought it a little strange that Brother Branham was going to drive all the way from Indiana out to here to go hunting and only bring 3 bullets. And I wasn't that good of a shot. When I went, I took 3 boxes. But Brother Branham said one of them was to see if his gun was in sight. The second one was to correct it and then test it, and then the third one was to kill his game. And that's the first time I realized that Brother Branham was the expert marksman that he is. Now, you did not see Blondie, the 270 rifle that he hunted with most of the time, in the den, because it is back in Jeffersonville. But that gun was given to him by a man, and Brother Branham killed 55 head of game with that rifle and never missed a shot. So one day I told Brother Branham, I said, Brother Branham, I'm going to write a book about the blonde in your life. And I'm going to tell people that she belonged to somebody else before you got her, and that you killed over her 55 times. He said, Brother Green, you write that book and don't tell people it was my rifle, and it'll be a bestseller. But the first time that I ever knew about Brother Branham, I knew he was coming here, but I didn't know where he came. But he came in here with McAnally in 61, and he killed a pig, a javelina hog, and you saw it hanging over the door of the den yesterday. He came back in 62, and he killed another one. He came back in 63, and he killed the third one, and that's the 3 javelina pigs that you saw in the den. Now, March the 4th, Brother Branham had moved out here in 62, but in March the 4th of 63, he was in Houston, Texas, preaching a meeting in order to get people to sign petitions to save the stepson of the photographer that took the picture with the pillar of fire over his head from the death row in Texas. And out of gratitude, that photographer gave Brother Branham the original negative and the copyright to that picture. That's the reason we can legally copy it today. Up until that time, all the pictures legally had to be bought from him. But since then, since Brother Branham owned it, well then, since then we've been able to print them and make them and distribute them the way we have. But I did not ever come here with Brother Branham hunting. What I know, I've heard from tape, and I've talked to the people who were here with Brother Branham. Now, he came here in 63, as I said, and he was hunting with Fred Sothman and Gene Norman. Now, he was in Houston on March the 4th. The season opened that year on March the 4th, and it closed on the 14th. Now, Brother Branham preached down there, and he got in the vehicle, and he drove straight through, and he came here on the 6th, on March the 6th, and killed his pig. I think he shot his pig right around here. And he saw those pigs go up over the top there, and that's the reason that he told Brother Norman and Brother Sothman that those pigs went up on the top, and he said, in the morning you all go around and be on the other side. So they did. They took and drove around there, and where you came through that cattle yard down there, the last one we came through, there's a road right there that goes up on top of this, and that's called Rattlesnake Mesa. And they went around there, and Brother Branham left here and climbed right up here and went up on the top. And about 10 o'clock in the morning is when he sat down to rest, and he saw the kookaburra in his pants. He realized he was in that vision that he'd told about in 1961. He knew when he removed it, if that was the vision, that there was an explosion. And when he was not disobedient to those visions, he wasn't afraid of them, but when he pulled that kookaburra. Now today, if you walk around into that wash out there, you will find kookaburras. They wash down out of the mountains, and they're usually out there in that sand. You can find them, and they stick to your clothes pretty good, but it's a pest all over America. You know, just a nuisance plant. But when Brother Branham removed that, there was an explosion took place that he said shook this area, and rocks this big rolled down the side of the hill, which the brothers saw. And Brother Branham stood to his feet because he wondered what caused that, and he thought somebody had shot him. But he says he knew that from experience that you never hear the bullet that kills you. And so he says when he looked off, he saw what looked like 7 dots. And suddenly, standing in front of him was 7 angels in the form of a pyramid. And Brother Branham says that they caught him up in their midst, and that's when they told him to go back east, and by revelation he'd preach the 7 seals.
Amen.
Now he said that the angel on the lower left is the one that always meant so much to him.
Yes.
That he saw, that's the angel he'd seen all the time, that it always meant something to him. And if you look in the picture we have from Lakeport, California, where Brother Branham says the angel is standing up there with licks of fire coming from his fingertips, it even looks like Brother Branham. There's resemblance. Well, then Brother Branham came back here in 64 hunting. And I personally believe that Brother Branham came on March the 6th, killed his pig. On March the 7th is the day the angels appeared. Now the photograph of the cloud was taken on February the 28th. And it was taken over Flagstaff. Now, it appears, if you just listen, I assumed when I first heard all this that Brother Branham was here on February the 28th. That's when he killed his pig, and when the angels left here, they formed the cloud. And that's what I said for years all over the world, until we got the timeline, and then we see that Brother Branham wasn't even here. So all I can say is that the only explanation I can give you is those angels formed that cloud 7 days before they showed themselves to Brother Branham here.
Oh.
Now I read to you ministers where those angels have been seen by the Soviet cosmonauts in space.
Uh-huh.
I read that to the ministers yesterday in detail.
Yeah.
Now, Brother Branham came back here in 64, and while he was here, well, there was about 15 brothers with him, and Brother Roberson was one of them, and Brother McHughes was here, and his brother Glenn, and Brother Borders was here, and there was a brother that had a deer hanging from that limb right there, and he was standing there skinning it. And of course they had their campers all backed in here, and Brother Branham told Brother Robertson, said, Brother Robertson, get behind something. He said, something's fixing to happen. And Brother Branham picked up a shovel. Now, this fire wasn't here. At that time, the fire was right here. And Brother Branham was standing about here, shoveling dirt on this fire, putting it out, getting ready for them to leave to go. Because that's one thing he always taught us, leave the campgrounds like you found it. We picked up all of our trash and everything else. And when he did, there was an explosion occurred and a whirlwind came over the top of that bluff. And you can see the place of it that's missing. There's the chunk it tore out of there. There's a white cross. Right there. You can see that piece that's missing right there. It took that piece out of there and broke it up into pieces the size of your fist or smaller and scattered it all over this area. And Brother Branham said it came down and cut the tops out of the trees. Now, if you look at the trees right in here, see this one and that one and even that one right there. These right in here are not as tall as those. And that's the only explanation I can give you. Now, people have asked me, what do you mean cut the tops out of them? Well, I think it just broke the top limbs off of them. But it just, if you look, these here have always been lower. They've never grown up as high as these here have. Now, it was in 1969 that we came over here, and a sister had painted this bluff, and it's on her picture that I noticed a profile on the end of this bluff. And I asked her, did you paint that on it? She says, no, I just painted the bluff the way it looked. And so I came right over here, and when I stand there and look, that's when we discover that's up there. And I think, how many thousands of years did it take the wind, the rain, the weather, everything else, to put Brother Branham's profile there, looking up there where those 7 angels came down? Now, if you look around here, you might find some of the 3-cornered rocks. And it'll be rock of this texture right here. And the end of it looks something like that. And it's amazing. Almost every rock you'll find, it'll have 3 points on it, almost any way you look at it. Here, there, there.
Yes.
Sometimes you'll find them thin, but they seem to have broken in a pyramid shape. I don't know what this one's doing laying here, but that's the texture of rock that you want to look for as you walk around. And they're constantly being uncovered by the wind and the erosion. People even go up here and look, but I found them as far as that bluff over there. Any questions?
Brother Green, when I was visiting his apartment, I noticed his little desk, and that he had his. One sister was telling me that he was revealed the seals here, but you mentioned it, and I had remember reading it that the Lord told him to go back east.
No, he was in Jeffersonville, sitting in that armchair that's in the den when the seals were revealed to him. Brother Branham wrote sermons on that desk, but the seals were revealed to him in Jeffersonville, and that chair was back there, and his Bible on the left arm and his pad on the right.
So he didn't even write any notes here, what he saw
About
here?
the seals? I don't think so. Now, sermons like what is the attraction on the mountain and rapture and so forth, he probably got those notes here. But that was his desk that he wrote things on.
When Jorgensen had mentioned that, when she was mentioning that to you, we were in the other room, he said that the proofreading also in things to do with the church ages, he may have done off of that desk.
No, the church age book was proofread to Brother Branham by myself out loud, sitting in front seat of my car on a hunting trip, and others. Well, I either do a good job
Yes.
explaining everything, or else I do such a poor job that you don't know enough to ask questions.
I talked to somebody who was here during that day, and of course, when you run into somebody, you're always interested in what their experience is. It's always a little different.
Yes, yes.
Everybody sees or hears something different. And this person said there was a very loud screeching noise, and you can imagine a whirlwind whirling to the extent that it will, quote, rent the rock. It was a very loud screeching noise. That was his.
And it rose up and went back where it came from, and Brother Branham was standing there, and he took his hat off when he came down over his head. And when he left, he put his hat back on, and he turned, and some of them heard him say, God spoke to Job in a whirlwind. Now, we have some photographs of Brother Branham at this place, and he's standing on this rock, and he's showing one of those pyramid-shaped rocks, and he's on this rock, and Joseph is sitting on it, and there looks like there's a pillar of fire on it. And we have pictures of him laying on the ground, and he's leaning up against that boulder over there. That big boulder. Now, there were some smaller boulders here, but people have taken them home with them. That one they couldn't get without a backhoe or a forklift, so it's still here.
Brother Branham came here especially for hunting?
Yes, that's the reason he came here.
There's no other place in Arizona better for hunting?
No, this is about as good a place you can find for javelina pigs and white-tailed deer and mule deer. In fact, many of our brothers still come here every year.
So where's the exact place that he met the 7 angels?
Up on top of that up there. You'd have to go up on top, but we can show you pictures of it. But he was up on top of that over there, and one of those fingers that goes off the other side.
This is the bones of the deer or what?
No, you wouldn't have a deer bone here. That's probably a cow.
Right.
Somebody probably found it where a cow had died in here and brought the bone in here. Sometimes when the brothers are hunting, they will find a set of antlers or bones, and if it's during the particular season of the year when the male deer are seeking the females, they'll rack those things together, and the deer will come to that sound. I don't know how this got there.
Do they have a still have deer here?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Did y'all see the antelope coming in today?
Yes, yeah, we did.
Just as we turned on this road coming here, whole herd of antelope right off to the right. There was 40 or 50 of them.
Did you hunt, brother?
Yes, I've hunted.
You killed some deer?
I've killed just about everything that's walked, except a man,
not man,
and a woman.
Oh, hallelujah!
And by ignorance, I have possibly assassinated some of their character.
Still, we can hunt now.
Yes, if you have license and it's seasoned.
Oh, very good.
Brother Branham liked eating those javelinas.
Brother Branham did not kill game to eat. His wife did not like wild game. They ate the squirrels, but most of the other he gave it away. But Brother Arnie Peterson right there and his 2 sons just came off of a hunt with his father where they killed a record Rocky Mountain sheep over here on the eastern part of the state.
You said an angel forming the pyramid shape. And is that a human shape? No?
No, when the angels came down, there was 1 at the top and 3 down each side.
So how high is it?
Well, the photograph that we have of them, the cloud they formed when they were here was, it's 26 miles high off of the earth. Yeah. It's 50 miles wide.
Yeah. And how about a pyramid thing?
I have no idea the dimensions of it. It's like Paul says in the Bible. He said, I've done and seen things that are unlawful for a man to see. He's been to the 3rd heavens. And this happened to Brother Branham quite often with these things. And I'll tell you again, folks, that these things like this, like the profile and these rocks and all, that does not make a believer out of you. What happens is if you believe, these things only confirm what you've got by spiritual revelation. The things that we've shown you all week, the different things and talked to you about, they're not to make you a believer. They're only to encourage you and make your hearts to burn.
Yes.
when you hear Brother Branham talk about it on a tape, or when you read it in a book, or when you hear somebody tell the story, you can say, yeah, I've been there. I've seen that place. I stood there. And there's nothing more holy about this than any rock out here. It's our attitude toward it. Now, this piece of property here is on federal land. I own this.
Who owned it?
I do.
You want to purchase it?
Yeah, no, if you're an American citizen, you own it. This is public land. This belongs to our government. You know, like you in China, y'all own everything. You're part of the government.
Yeah.
Y'all believe in that's communist. See, everything.
That's true. Yeah.
That's what it is. Now, when you came through that gate down there, you came onto public land. But between the two gates is private land. And we had to have permission to cross that to get to this. They could have locked that gate and we'd had to walk in here. Now, they're not supposed to. You're supposed to, 10 years ago, we'd have took a pistol and said, pow! We just shot the lock off the gate. But we don't do that anymore. They're getting where we're a little bit more civilized now. But in Arizona, you can still wear your pistol on your hip as long as you expose it. Anybody here can wear a gun as long as you expose it. But if you cover it up, you have to have a license. But if it's exposed, you can wear it in place but the airport and the courthouse. Don't go to the airport. Don't go to the courthouse.
Brother Pearry?
Yes.
What scriptures did Brother Branham say were fulfilled on Sunset Mountain?
What scriptures?
What scriptures that were fulfilled on Sunset Mountain?
I don't remember any particular scriptures. You referring to a particular tape or something?
What's the attraction on the mountain?
And what does he say?
Well, I was asking you as far as...
I don't remember any particular scriptures that he referred to was fulfilled on there.
Okay. Well, I believe him to say that Zechariah 14:4 through 9 was fulfilled on Sunset Mountain, and Revelations 10:1 through 7 fulfilled on Sunset Mountain.
You heard Brother Branham say that, or have you heard somebody say he said that?
That's in his book.
Would you show it to me? I'd like to. This particular incident, or are you talking about the revelation of the seals? I'm not arguing with you.
That's no problem.
I'd like to see where you.
Here's the book.
Okay.
And here's the quotes on it.
Brother Linhart usually reads all this to me.
Okay. What happened on Sunset Mountain?
What's happened up on Mount Sunset, God confirming his word. That's what all this noise is about. Notice it's God fulfilling his promised word again of Revelations 10:1 to 7. And in the days of the sounding of the seventh angel's message, the mystery of God should be finished. The hidden mystery of Revelations 10:1 to 7, the last message of the last church age, fulfills exactly in this age, St. Luke 17:30, the day when the Son of Man shall be revealed, and there shall rise false prophets and false Christ, show great signs and wonders, insomuch it deceived the elected if possible. The people still in doubt, and as usual, the church is just as puzzled. Yes, I understand it, but what the angels did here is they told Brother Branham, and then Brother Branham went back to Jeffersonville, and that's where he preached these mysteries. I don't think he's saying that it was fulfilled here, but I certainly believe this, that Brother Branham believes it started. Now, you take, let me say this, for example, that it was, I don't know what the name of this canyon here is. I don't know that Brother Branham ever said it, but Brother Branham was looking on a map, and he discovered on the topographical map that this mountain range here has a peak over here called Sunset. And Brother Branham said, I was looking at it the other day, and I see that that's Sunset Mountain. Well, you and I call this Sunset Mountain, but if you go around and talk to these neighbors, they'll tell you there is no Sunset Mountain. Because Sunset Peak is about 40 miles away from here. Up here, and you can see, when you start out, you can look to the right there, and you can see the mountains where they rise up. It's sort of like looking at the Catalina Mountains from Tucson, but there's Mount Lemmon, and there's Cathedral Rock, and there's Push Ridge, and there's Finger Rock, and this one here, this mountain range, whatever it is, there's one of these peaks over here that's called Sunset. But to you and I, this whole thing is Sunset Mountain. And so if you ask a person who lives here, they'll tell you, well, there's no Sunset Mountain. And I want you to know there's people come from all over the world. There's, I guess about 10 years ago, there was a young man, he must have been about his 30s. He came in here and he lived in here like a hermit. And all the neighbors, the ranchers, nobody around here was afraid of him. And he was telling them, you know, that God was here and that this happened and angels came here and everything else. Well, they don't understand what he's saying, and they just thought he was crazy. But when he says it like that, and then he says, well, Reverend William Branham, well, then that's, quote unquote, the label that's put on it. So somebody like ourselves starts trying to tell them about Brother Branham, well, then they just, oh, another one of those. And it's only, I guess, what was it, Arnie, 7 or 8 years ago, we was hunting over here, and in your motorhome, and the man that grades the road out here, Cliff Hayes, we talked about, he stopped to get acquainted with us, and when I found out, he's talking about, well, there's a bunch of people coming there and they do this, and I just let him talk and ask him questions, and after a while, then I told him who we were and what we believed, and I found out he goes to a Pentecostal church in Safford, and since then we've given him tapes and books, and little by little, well, the neighborhood around here has begun to, well, those people are not crazy, you know, they're just sincere Christians, and they believe God sent a prophet, because most of these people around here are Mormons, and they believe that Joseph Smith was their prophet. And, you know, you have to have a seed in you, and you have to have eyes to see and ears to hear, and I'm not ashamed of that, but I think sometimes we lack wisdom in the way we try to give somebody the truth of the message and the revelation. Just because we understand it, well, it doesn't have to be. Brother Branham said if you're going to witness somebody about the Lord, well, you don't just walk into a Ford Motor Company and say, listen, Jesus Christ loves you, and he's coming tomorrow, and if you don't repent, you're a sinner. Brother Branham said, go in there and start talking to them about cars. Talk to them about Fords, you know, and find out. And in a minute you say, well, God bless you. And the man said, what'd you say? Then you give him a door. Next thing you know, well, and a lot of people think, well, they rejected the message. They rejected the word, so that shows they're not right. I give them the word test. But I think sometimes they don't reject the truth. They reject the way we give it to them.
That's right. Yes.
If you give me a glass of water, the water inside is pure, but the outside of the glass is filthy. It looks like you just picked it up out of those ashes. I'm not sure I'd drink it. It's nothing wrong with the water. It's just the way you present it to me. And I think that God gives us wisdom to do that. And I want you to know, brother, I believe every word that Brother Branham said. But to me, Brother Branham's talking about that this is where it started. I don't think it all happened here. But God told him to go from here to there, because that would be the term of speech he would use with it. Thank you for that.
Vindicating is this is that ministry, you know.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, it was, you know, it's like you can go and you can read the miracles of the plagues in Egypt, and there's a natural explanation for every single one of those plagues. It's the timing of them that makes them supernatural. And brothers, I guess that's the reason this profile up here means what it does to me, because, you know, we could come in and we could say this happened and these rocks and this and over there. But when we found that up there, and that doesn't look like me. That doesn't look like anybody else but Brother Branham. And you take a picture of that like we have in the office, and you take and put it side by side with Brother Branham in the Houston photograph, and you can see Brother Branham in this. You know, you hand it to a stranger and say, this is this man. Do you think this looks like him? And he'd say, yeah. Well, that to me is just a little thing that God did for us.
Amen.
For us. Not for everybody out here, but for us.
Amen.
Now that brother that was here, he came in here doing that because he felt that if he came in here, God would reveal something to him, and he'd stomp out of here and be a prophet to all of us. And I don't mean to belittle those folks, because they're just as sincere as they can be. But folks, I tell you what, I have one or two of them every week. Every week they come to my church because of the size of the church, and they come there and they've got thus saith the Lord, and God sent me here with a message, and I have to say, well, brother, that's fine. You're welcome to come to church, but the Lord gave me a message for this morning.
That's right.
And I should tell you that we don't take offerings in the tabernacle, and usually that's the end of it. You know. But thank you for coming. I trust it's a blessing to you, and when you hear and read the tapes like this brother has here, well, it's like when Brother When I told the church the first time I ever thought I'd found the place where the sword appeared. Well, I went to the church the next night, and you know how a preacher gets. I said, I can take you to the place. I can show you where it is. I've been there. I've seen that. That's the place.
Amen.
Because Brother Branham, when he took that roll of pictures, when he went up, when I first got there, I looked and I said, well, Brother Branham took a picture of that up there, but he wasn't down here. He was standing up there. So I went up the trail, and when I got up there to where I had about the same view of those bluffs, I stopped. And I think I can take and show you the exact place Brother Branham was standing when he took that picture. There's a place up there now where they blasted out the white quartz, and used to we had to go up there and we had to step around that because there was a point sticking out there, but now they blasted it off. But when Brother Branham got there and he turned around and he looked, and he saw over there where those jagged rocks were, and that's where the sword appeared in his hand, that had an attraction to him, and he took 3 photographs of that in that roll of film that Billy's got. And instead of photographing the bluffs, these jagged rocks was right in the middle of it. In other words, he was aiming at that. These others are just the scenery in the background. And from there, you couldn't tell that here's the bluffs and here's the jagged rocks and the trail goes between them. You couldn't tell it till you got over there. And then when you go over there and see it, Brother Branham said, I went up the game trail and I went there, and to my right there were some jagged rocks, and I walked up in them, and here's these great big bluffs bigger than this tabernacle when he talked Snow White Dove. Well, then it all did. But here's Brother Branham. He stood here and he took those photographs. And as I looked for those things that I'd seen in those scenes, as I saw this one and that one, I said, well, this is where he went because he took a picture of that. He had a picture of that, and I get there and we find a rock about the size of this one right here, and it looked like it had some writing on it. And to Brother McClintock, I says, well, Brother Harold, I said, that right there, I wonder if that could be it. But I said, no, Brother Branham said that rock weighed about 70 tons. And I said, that wouldn't be over 1 or 2. And Brother Harold McClintock was standing there with his flyleaf, his little testament. He was drawing that on there so we could compare it with the picture that Billy Paul had. And I went on down the trail to see if I could find another thing. And I get down there, and I see this eagle standing up there, you know, with his wings pulled back like this, the eagle rock, with the big tall one up there. And I stopped and I says, Brother Harold, I said, Brother Branham took a picture of this up here, and when I looked, well, there was a tree limb there. And I stepped back to see around it. When I did, well, right in front of me was that big pyramid rock that had been blasted open in 1937, which we found out since then. And right in front of me was the word eagle in white quartz. There wasn't anything supernatural about it. It was just, about me finding it. I just was following the signs of the pictures I'd seen, and there it was. Now, Brother Branham says, there under my chest was quartz, white eagle. Well, people look for the word white eagle, but it's according to the way you punctuate it. Quartz, white, eagle.
Yes, and he was in white eagle.
You know, it's like Brother Branham. He said, now today I'm going to talk to you about God called man.
Yeah.
And then Brother Branham will talk about Moses and Elijah and John the Baptist. Men. The word men is not in Brother Branham's vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Man.
And Anointed Ones in time, he said, Janus and Jambres, man. 2 men. The only time it ever sounds like he says men is when he says men and women.
Uh-huh.
But the word men is not in his vocabulary. He didn't say the word man, men. So you can take this and you can say a God called man, or you can say it's according to the way they punctuate it. And they've taken that and they said, well, he's a God, but he's called a man. But he's a man called by God.
Oh, hallelujah.
Big difference.
Big difference. And it's according to just the way you punctuate. Like Brother Branham, he says this about me. He says, I've heard Brother Green many times speak. Well, most people would say, I've heard Brother Green speak many times. He's just talking Spanish. Because you always put the verb. You know, it's a different way it is. And it's like I say, sometimes it's just a matter of understanding.
I'm from that part of the country, and that's where we talk. Whenever I write a letter, I see that I've got to turn around backwards, and I use a word, and it corrects it for me. I see that little green underline up here. I know what he means.
Okay. God bless you. Look for your rocks. Leave your offering right here.
I have one already in my
Now,
pocket.
when we start back, we'll go back the same way. If any of you want to go on up to Klondyke and see that, it's 2 miles up the road. There's just one store. And you go back to Bonita, just like we were, and turn right and go back. And how'd you like the size of that greenhouse down there? That's bigger than anything you got in Texas. That's the world's largest greenhouse. There's a company from Holland that owns that, and they grow tomatoes in there. They're not planted in the soil, it's just sunshine and nutrients. They got that from Israel. That's the way Israel grows tomatoes and strawberries and things like that over there. And they've done it here because of the sunshine, the availability of the water, and the cheap labor force they could get in here. Yeah, and they ship thousands of loads of tomatoes and tomato juice out of here, and most of it goes to Europe. And every year I come, it looks like they built another one and another one. And down that whole stretch there for about 4 miles, their plans are to build those. Now, when you get there and you turn right to go back, the speed limit is 45 miles an hour till you get around the curve down there and past that little store. And the main source of income for that little municipality is speeding tickets from tourists. So you do not want to speed down that stretch of road. You have been warned. I'll be here for a little while to ask questions, answer questions.
We appreciate all the explanation, the information. We think God had a purpose in having you here, but I don't think anybody else could bring
Well, I said this to y'all one night, you know, that one time in Jeffersonville, I had breakfast with Brother Branham, and I'd like to tell you how that happened. Brother Branham was there and having a wedding rehearsal. And of course, I had been taught church order, you know, that you go in the church and you don't say, you don't whisper, you don't talk. And I'm the kind of person, I was there and I got acquainted with Brother Branham's brother, Uncle Doc, and his name was Edgar, and he lived across the street from the church. And after the wedding rehearsal, well, the church needed to be cleaned up, and I was helping Uncle Doc clean the church, and I had a dust mop, and I was mopping between the seats like this, and I was being so respectful I wouldn't even bump the seat with the mop.
Yeah.
And I'm like this, and I'm about halfway back in the congregation, and Brother Branham has left. And I'm mopping like this, and all of a sudden, Brother Pearry, and I thought God had called my name. Right there in Branham Tabernacle. And I turned and looked, and Brother Branham had come back in the church and was standing behind the pulpit. And see, it was my attitude that I was doing this, and all of a sudden, Brother Pearry, what would you do? And I turned and looked, and Brother Branham came, he says, Brother Pearry, where are you living? Where are you staying? And I said, well, over at the Holiday Inn over in Clarksville. Well, could we have breakfast in the morning? They got a restaurant, a coffee shop over there? Well, yes, sir. Well, I'll see you there at 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, first of all, he violated church order pretty strong. He did it opposite of what all those brothers had taught me. It blowed my mind. I had also had Uncle Doc tell me that the first week that Brother Branham talked about church order, that people used to go to the church, and Brother Branham told me this even, that Brother Branham said that when he'd have a meeting like on Sunday morning, well, when he's going to have a service that night, people wouldn't even go home. They'd all stay there in their seats, and somebody would go out and bring in the hamburgers, the pizza, and they all ate right there in the church, and said, Brother Green, he said it'd be a congregation about every 4 rows. Said some preacher had some revelation. Said he'd get this little group right here and said he'd turn around, he'd be preaching his revelation and tell them what they thought I said and everything else. And he said, I just had to do something in my church. And he said when he went to the Riverside Church and saw how Norman Vincent Peale and them did it, he just come home and said, we'll stop this. Well, the first week that they had after church order, well, Uncle Doc, he's walking down the aisle of the church, and they had a black sister there. It's always there, always there. And Uncle Doc went past her, and when he come back, well, she stuck her hand out and said, good morning, brother. And he stopped and said, well, good morning, sister, how are you? And by the time he got to the back door, the deacon said, you do that one more time, and we'll have you arrested for disturbing the peace. And so Uncle Doc goes to his brother, and he says, Bill, said, if you was walking down the aisle of your church and sister, and he called that sister by name, were to stick her hand out, what would you do? Brother Brown said, I'd stop and speak to her. Well, that's totally opposite the way brothers have interpreted church order to me. Well, if you bump the pew or you're even nice to somebody, welcome to church as one, brother. If you're a stranger, God bless you. Enjoy the house of God today. Now, I don't believe in party or anything else, but if people are offended the way that I let my people be friendly to each other or friendly to visitors, well, I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I hope that's the only thing I ever have to face Brother Branham with. That, not taking offerings. I've had brothers come stand right in my pulpit and indict me because I didn't do church order exactly the way they did it. And I don't know any 2 pastors who do it exactly alike, so I don't know which one of us is right. And I've been indicted for not taking offerings, and I hope that's the only thing I have to face Brother Branham with. But I just think sometimes that we just get hard, and we get our attitude toward God is what counts. And it's not the vision and the talking and all that about the other things, but if it's things to praying to the kingdom of God and you're being friendly to somebody, well, the reason I'm that way is because of what I did. But these brothers, they taught me church order the first time I went to Jeffersonville. Because I was Brother Billy Paul's friend in school, Billy took and stood me in the pulpit. He says, Pearry, I want you to watch this. And the deacons opened the doors, 4 doors. And when they did, those people had been lined up since 5 o'clock in the morning, come charging in like a flood. And here come the 4 brothers who had taught me church order. And they were pushing and shoving and stumbling over everybody. And they got to the seat they wanted, and they spread out like this till their wives and kids caught up with them, and then they took out their Bible. And I stood in the pulpit and looked at it, and I said, hypocrites. And as a result of that, not one time did I ever take a seat in Branham Tabernacle. How could I, as a gentleman, take a seat if a sister was standing? And I made myself unpopular even then. And I will do it today. If I go to a funeral or a place where there's a crowd and their sisters stand up, I'll ask the brother, brother, would you stand up and let the lady sit down?
Yes.
That's the kind of man Brother Branham was. Yep. Brother Branham was the kindest, politest man to ladies. He would take off his hat if a woman came in his friend. I don't care who she was. Right. He'd let them be first on the elevator. He'd open the door for them. He said, yes, ma'am. He tipped everybody. We get this idea we're so self-righteous that we just forget we're Christians. Oh, I'm loaded. I'm controversial too. But if you don't like what we've done, just watch our smoke. I think we've just begun, really. I really do. God has really been good to us this year. It's the blessing we've been to people. And that morning, Brother Branham invited me to breakfast. That's what I started to tell you. He told me things that morning about this and about other experiences and that he had and so forth. And next morning, we had breakfast again. Same place. And he told me the same experiences. And this time I'm sitting there and I'm saying, is Brother Branham getting old and senile? He don't remember he told me that yesterday morning? And it bothered me. And then the next day we had breakfast. And that day I asked him, I said, Brother Branham, am I just dumb? Am I dense? Am I not getting what you're saying? That's the reason you're repeating yourself to me. See, I tried to put the blame on me. And he laughed. And he looked all out past me and came back and said, you don't understand now, but someday you will. And brother, it's so I can tell you. Just to make sure I got it right and didn't misunderstand it. I'm not saying that everything I say is right. All I want to do is be a faithful witness, tell you what I saw and heard, and you take it in the light of what you hear Brother Branham say, and you let the Holy Ghost apply it to your own life.
Yep.
I'm not your judge. We're not one another's judge. Holy Spirit's our judge, and let it be that way. And if we can't stand toe-to-toe and disagree and still love one another, there's something wrong with our experience. We need to go back to the altar.
Amen, brother.
Now see what happens every time you say something, you just get me started again. So, if you want to go home, just don't ask me nothing.
Where is he?
It's amazing how it's like a natural amphitheater in there.
Well, all right. That I would sure be honored to do that. That's brother Bobby comes there.
Yes, sir, he's coming on reluctantly. Like the Lord has granted him such a way because I was here. And I've never been here service only for once before. So I finished my exams at the end of January. I told him on the 31st. I should be home on the first week of February.
Brother Bobby's coming.
Thank you.
This one works. Right there. The upright part with your white floor or dark?
Yeah, no, right this, and right above it you can see about 12 inches in the middle. See the piece that goes across out of this light color?
Okay. I think so. There's two.
Okay.
Kind of.
You see that's cut out right there?
Okay.
Right above the cactus.
Okay, right above the cactus.
Right above the cactus. There's 3 holes.
Okay.
Go to the hole on the left.
Okay.
Right straight of that you can see
That's
sort of a
the
light
vertical
colored
one?
streak. That's the vertical.
Okay.
And up there then there's the other one. It looked like about 6 foot long. The other one's about 8
Okay.
foot long. But used to that was very distinguished.
Yeah. Well, the lady, the answer lady said where the cross is, like she knew where it was.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I was kind of
Now we got a Girl Scout. Where the green?
Yes.
How far do you suppose? You can see where it cuts on the left. How far does it go? It seems like it goes about, I used to see about 10 or 15 feet. That whole area was lighter, and we didn't have those dark stripes like that.
Yeah, that water's coming over there. See, you can see where it comes over the top of it and runs down there. And that's what I'm wondering is where those dark stripes coming from on those rocks over there. So that's water on this.
But as I recall, you could see it.
Yeah,
a lot
yeah, it was,
clearer, about 10 or 15 feet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Now you can see definitely those 2 vertical stripes. There's those got to have an end. 2, the only 2 I know.
I think those 2, see that come over there, you know.
He's a purpose. He ought to be up there exploring a hole.
English.
Yes, sir. It's given to me as a play system.
Smith Wigglesworth, 3, something double that size.
Yeah, it's a good game.
I'd like to see the King James part.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Can't imagine why, but surely.
Oh, for memories. And to tell my grandchildren if I ever get any. Put that.
All right, thank you.
Then what do you do if you're not doing that?
Give him to Andrew. I hope he still got it.
It's really pretty.